Welcome to my channel. Subscribe, listen and enjoy my stories every day. The rays of the evening sun streaked across the polished surfaces of our living room, catching the fine dust motes in a dance of light and shadow. I was lounging on the couch, half watching a game on TV and half listening to my wife, Jenna, as she hummed contentedly while preparing dinner. We had been married for 5 years, nestled comfortably in the routines of shared life. Or so I thought. "Babe, can you pass me your phone? I need to check the game's schedule," I called out casually, my eyes still glued to the screen. Jenna's humming stopped abruptly. Just a sec," she replied, her voice slightly higher than usual. There was a clatter from the kitchen, followed by the soft pad of her footsteps. She handed me her phone, her fingers brushing mine with a tension that hadn't been there before. I couldn't help but notice her phone was on silent. Odd, I thought, since Jenna usually had her phone ringing off the hook with calls from her friends and the boutique she managed downtown. As I tapped through the screen, a notification flashed briefly from an unknown number: "Thanks for last night. Same time next week." My heart stalled. My thumb hovered over the screen, the earlier casual air now thick with suspicion. "Who's this messaging you?" I tried to keep my voice even, but the sharp glance she threw me betrayed her calm demeanor. "Oh, just some random wrong number. Happens all the time." Jenna laughed it off, but her laughter was strained, and she avoided my gaze, focusing instead on chopping vegetables with a bit too much force. I nodded, pretending to accept her explanation, but as she turned back to her task, curiosity overcame me. I opened the message thread. The texts were a slew of arrangements and explicit exchanges with someone whose number wasn't saved, but whom Jenna seemed to know very well. My stomach churned as I read the last message again, the word entertainment echoing ominously in my mind. "Hey, who really is this person?" I confronted her again, this time my tone sharp and betraying my shock. Jenna's facade finally broke as she set down the knife with a clatter and faced me, her face pale. "Mark, I can explain," she stammered, tears welling up in her eyes. But the texts spoke for themselves. Each message was a sledgehammer tearing down the life I thought we had built together. My wife was paying for another man's company, no, not just company, intimacy. The betrayal sliced through me, cold and sharp. "You've been paying him?" I choked out the words, my voice barely a whisper but laden with devastation. Jenna nodded slowly, her eyes downcast. "I was going to tell you. It's not what you think, Mark." But her words were just noise, drowned out by the roaring in my ears. The woman I loved, the woman I trusted, had been living a double life. I stood up abruptly, the phone still in my hand. "I need some air," I muttered, storming out of the house. The door slammed behind me with a finality that seemed to echo the crumbling of my world. As I walked through the cooling evening, the images of the texts burned behind my eyes. My mind raced with the possibilities of revenge. I was hurt, yes, but more than that, I was angry. Angry at being fooled, at being betrayed. I would make her regret her deception. I would ensure that our paths never crossed again. After all, I thought bitterly, revenge is a dish best served cold. As the night air cooled around me, my strides grew longer and my thoughts darker. I ended up at a local bar, a dimly lit establishment that smelled faintly of spilled beer and stale cigarettes, a far cry from the upscale places Jenna and I usually frequented. Here, nobody knew my name, and that anonymity felt like a balm. I settled at the bar, nursing a drink, when a voice beside me interrupted my brooding. "Rough night, huh?" The man was older, with a weathered face and eyes that seemed to have seen too much. "You could say that," I responded tersely, not in the mood for conversation. He chuckled, a low, knowing sound. "Name's Frank. I've seen that look before. Betrayal, right?" I turned, surprised by his accuracy. "Is it that obvious?" "Only to a fellow sufferer," Frank replied, signaling the bartender for another round. Here's to finding out the truth, the hard way. His words, meant to comfort, only served to stir the anger simmering within me. I confided in him, a complete stranger, about Jenna and the texts. Frank listened, nodding with a grim expression. That's rough, buddy. But you know, sometimes getting even is the only way to close that chapter. His suggestion sparked an idea, dangerous and potent. What if I could expose her? Make sure she feels the humiliation she put me through. Frank raised an eyebrow. Well, that's one way to go about it. But remember, revenge can cut two ways. Ignoring his warning, my mind raced with possibilities. I could expose her affair publicly, ruin her reputation, maybe even get that guy she was with into trouble. I need information. Do you know anyone who could dig up dirt, discreetly? I asked, the plan forming more concretely in my mind. Frank's eyes narrowed, and he scribbled something on a napkin, sliding it across to me. This guy might help you out. But be careful, Mark. You're playing with fire. The name on the napkin was Tom Derricks, a private investigator known for his discretion and effectiveness. My resolve hardened, I was going to see this through. The next day, I found myself sitting across from Tom in his cluttered office, filled with files and old coffee cups. The air was thick with the smell of tobacco. I laid out my case, my voice steady despite the turmoil inside. Tom listened, his expression unreadable. I can get you what you need, but it's not going to be pretty. Are you sure you want to go down this path? Yes, I said without hesitation, the image of Jenna's deceitful texts flashing in my mind. All right, I'll need some details from you. Phone numbers, addresses, anything you have on her and this guy. I provided everything, my heart stealing with each piece of information I handed over. This was it, the point of no return. As I left his office, my phone buzzed, a text from Jenna. We need to talk. Please. I stared at the screen, her plea slicing through my resolve for a moment. But I quickly stifled the flicker of doubt. This was about justice, about reclaiming my dignity. The game was set, the players were in place, and I was determined to emerge victorious, no matter the cost. Jenna's betrayal would not go unpunished, and I was just getting started. The plot was thickening, and I was at its center, driven by a newfound purpose. The intrigue of the main plot was only deepening, and the next chapters would be decisive. The city hums with the bustling noise of the early evening as I wait outside the cafe where Jenna and I had agreed to meet. My heart beats a steady, nervous rhythm, contrasting sharply with the calm facade I project. People pass by, oblivious to the turmoil brewing on this street corner. Jenna arrives, looking wary yet determined. She spots me and pauses, her expression a complex tapestry of regret and resolve. Mark, thanks for coming, she begins, her voice softer than I recall from our last encounter. I nod, motioning for her to sit. You said we needed to talk. So talk. She takes a deep breath, clutching her purse like a lifeline. I know you saw the messages. I can explain, but I need you to listen to the whole story before you judge. Her plea hangs between us, dense and charged. I remain silent, my resolve firm, yet curiosity edges my anger. I need to understand the depth of her betrayal. It wasn't just about loneliness or dissatisfaction. I got involved with someone from my past, someone who knew me before us, Jenna confesses, her eyes not meeting mine. He was in trouble, debts, and bad people after him. He asked for help, and I thought I could handle it without involving you. The revelation hits me like a wave. So you paid him to keep him safe? To keep him out of trouble? My voice is incredulous, my mind racing to piece together her story. Yes, but it got complicated. He wanted more, always more. I was going to end it, but then you saw the texts. Her voice trails off, laden with remorse. A mixture of emotions churns within me, anger, betrayal, but also a twinge of pity. And you think that justifies it? That it makes it all right? I probe, needing her to understand the gravity of her actions. No, I don't. I made a terrible mistake, she admits, her voice breaking. But I want to fix this, Mark. I want to make it right. As we talk, my phone vibrates discreetly. A message from Tom, the private investigator. He's forwarded me evidence of Jenna's financial transactions with this man, confirming her story, along with something unexpected. Photos of her, meeting not just the man but known criminals. I pause, considering my next words carefully. There's more to this, Jenna. It's not just about the affair or the money. You've entangled yourself with dangerous people. Her face drains of color as I show her the photos. I didn't know it would go this far, she whispers, fear flickering in her eyes. The pieces click into place, a mosaic of deception and danger. We need to go to the police, I state, my decision firm. It's the only way to protect you and end this. Jenna nods, her resolve mirroring mine. I'll do whatever it takes to make this right, with your help. As we stand to leave, the weight of the situation settles on my shoulders. This was no longer just a tale of infidelity but a dangerous game of crime and punishment. Together, we walk towards the nearest police station, the setting sun casting long shadows behind us. The path ahead is uncertain, fraught with challenges, but necessary. Our partnership, once based on love, now reformed into a reluctant alliance against a darker world Jenna had accidentally dragged us into. The fluorescent lights of the police station cast harsh shadows on the walls, mirroring the stark reality Jenna and I face together. We sit in an interrogation room, not as suspects, but as informants, ready to untangle the web of deception that had ensnared us both. Detective Harris, a seasoned officer with a keen eye, listens intently as Jenna recounts her entanglement. The room feels cold, clinical, but every word she speaks seems to heat the air with tension. I started helping him because I thought I could handle it, Jenna explains, her voice steady despite the tremor I see in her hands. But then he involved these other people, and it all spiraled out of control. And you never thought to tell your husband? Detective Harris asks, his gaze flickering to me briefly before returning to Jenna. I was afraid, Jenna admits, looking over at me with eyes full of regret. Afraid of losing him, of making it worse. As the detective takes notes, my mind races. The anger and betrayal churn inside me, but as the pieces of Jenna's story fall into place, another, more disturbing picture emerges. Detective Harris then turns his attention to me. And how do you fit into all this, Mr. Johnson? What's your take? I pause, weighing my words. I thought I knew her. I thought our life was simple, happy. But now, my voice trails off, the bitterness evident. We're here to help, Mark. If there's more to this, now's the time to share, Harris encourages, his tone gentle yet firm. Just then, the door opens, and another detective enters, whispering something in Harris's ear. The detective nods, then addresses us again. It seems we've just made a breakthrough. The man Jenna was involved with was found dead an hour ago. Shock renders me speechless. Jenna gasps, her face pale as death. This changes things, Detective Harris states plainly. Jenna, we need everything you know about his connections, his enemies. It's no longer just about money or deception. We're dealing with murder now. Jenna nods, swallowing hard. I'll tell you everything. I just want to end this nightmare. For the next hour, Jenna provides names, dates, places, details that paint a picture far more dangerous than a mere affair. As she speaks, the reality of her world, a world I was oblivious to, sinks in. When the interrogation concludes, Jenna and I are left alone for a moment. The air between us is heavy, charged with a myriad of emotions. Mark, Don't, I interrupt, my voice cold. You chose this path, Jenna. You chose deception over trust, danger over safety. Tears streamed down her face. I thought I was protecting you. By lying? By cheating? I stand, my chair scraping loudly against the floor. You didn't protect me, Jenna. You broke us. I'm sorry, Mark. I truly am, she pleads, her voice desperate. But it's too late. The betrayal, now mingled with the threat of criminal entanglements and murder, is too much. I turn to leave, my decision firm. Where will you go? Jenna's voice is barely a whisper. Away from here. Away from you, I reply without turning back. I hope you find your peace, Jenna. But it won't be with me. I walk out, leaving behind the woman I loved, the life we shared, and the chaos her secrets brought into our lives. The police station's doors close behind me with a definitive thud, echoing the closure of our chapter. Outside, the night air is crisp, almost biting, but it feels right. It's the breath of freedom, of a new beginning. As I walk away, the final pieces click into place, not just of Jenna's deception, but of my own self-deception in believing we could ever go back to what we were. The story concludes not with reconciliation, but with the harsh truth of consequences, leaving a poignant reminder of the depths of human complexity and the irreversible scars of betrayal.